Camille! 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 It doesn't matter who I am, as long as you go with me. I know a lot about Lapu-Lapu. Time travel with me.
Ikaw ang unang nabuo ng bayang Pilipino. Ikaw ang unang lumaban sa pananakop ng dayuhan. Ikaw ang nagsindi ng ilaw. Ikaw ang nagbigay ng liwanag sa kahulugan at katwiran sa halaga ng kalayaan. Bayan sa loob ng aking bayan, sa loob ng aking bayan.
Don't come any closer. We are in the Battle of Mactan. Okay, let me tell you a story. This is about Lapu-Lapu, of course. Lapu-Lapu was a ruler of Mactan, an island in the Visayas, Philippines, who is known as the first native of the archipelago to have resisted Spanish colonization. He was also responsible for the death of Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan. He is now regarded retroactively as the first Filipino hero. He is also known under the names Si Lapu-Lapu, Si Lapu-Lapu, Salipulaka, Kalipulaku, and Lapu-Lapu Dimantag. The only record of Lapu-Lapu before the arrival of the Spanish was in the pre-colonial oral chronicles from the reign of the last king of Cebu, Raha Tupas. This was in 1565. This was compiled and written in Baybayin in the book Aginid, Bayok sa Atong Tawarik, Glide On, Odes to Our History, in 1952 by Jovito Abellana. The chronicle records the founding of the Rajanate of Cebu by a certain Sri Lumay, also known as Raja Muda Lamaya, who was a prince from the Hindu Chola dynasty of Sumatra. His sons, Sri Alho and Sri Ukob, ruled the neighboring communities of Shalo and Nahalin, respectively. The islands they were in were collectively known as Pulua Kang Dayang, or Kang Daya, literally the islands which belonged to Daya. Sri Lumay was noted for his strict policies in defending against Moro raiders and slavers from Mindanao. His use of scorched earth tactics to repel invaders gave rise to the name Kang Sri Lumayang Sugbo, literally that of Sri Lumay's Great Fire, to the town which was later shortened to Sugbo, scorched earth. Upon his death in a battle against the raiders, Sri Lumay was succeeded by his youngest son, Sri Bantug, who ruled from the region of Singhapala, literally Lion City, now Mabolo in modern Cebu City. Sri Bantug died of an epidemic and was succeeded by his son Raha Humabon, also known as Sri Humabon or Raja Humabara. During Humabon's reign, the region had since become an important trading center. The harbors of Sugbo became known colloquially as Sinibuayang Hingpit, the place of trading, shortened to Cebu or Cebu, to trade, from which the modern name Cebu originates. This was the period in which Lapu-Lapu was first recorded as arriving from Borneo. He asked Humabon for a place to settle. Humabon offered him the region of Mandawili, now Mandaue, including the island known as Opong or Opon, hoping that Lapu-Lapu's people will cultivate the land. Lapu-Lapu succeeded in doing so, and the influx of farm produce from Mandawili enriched the trade port of Sugbu further. The relationship between Lapu-Lapu and Humabon deteriorated later on when Lapu-Lapu turned to piracy. he started raiding merchant ships passing by the island of Opong, affecting trade in Sugbo. The island thus earned the name Mangatang, literally bandit or those who lie in ambush, later evolving to Mactan. Lapu-Lapu was one of the two datus of Mactan before the Spanish arrived in the archipelago, the other being a certain Zula. When Portuguese explorer and conquistador Ferdinand Magellan arrived in the Philippines in the service of Spain, Zula was one of those who gave tribute to the Spanish king while Lapu-Lapu refused. In the midnight of April 27, 1521, Magellan led a force of around 60 Spaniards and 20 to 30 balangay, warboats, of Humabon's warriors from Cebu. They arrived in Mactan 3 hours before dawn. Magellan repeated his offer not to attack them if Lapu-Lapu swore fealty to Raja Humabon, obeyed the Spanish king, and paid tribute, which Lapu-Lapu again rejected. At the taunting request of Lapu-Lapu, the battle did not begin until morning. Magellan, perhaps hoping to impress Humabon's warriors with the superiority of European armor and weapons, told Humabon's warriors to remain in their balangay. Magellan and 49 of the heavily armored Spaniards, armed with lances, swords, crossbows, and muskets, waded ashore to meet Lapu-Lapu's forces. They set fire to a few houses on the shore in an attempt to scare them. Instead, Lapu-Lapu's warriors became infuriated and charged. 2 Spaniards were killed immediately in the fighting, and Magellan was wounded in the leg with a poisoned arrow. He ordered a retreat, which most of his men followed except for a few who remained to protect him. However, he was recognized as the captain by the natives, whereupon he became the focus of the attack. Outnumbered and encumbered by their armor, Magellan's forces were quickly overwhelmed. Magellan and several of his men were killed, and the rest escaped to the waiting ships. Thus, Magellan believed wrongly that since Raja Humabon was the king of Cebu, he was the king of Mactan as well. But the island of Mactan, the domain of Lapu-Lapu and Zula, was in a location that enabled them to intercept trade ships entering the harbor of Cebu, Humabon's domain. Thus it was more likely that Lapu-Lapu was actually more powerful than Humabon, or at least was the undisputed ruler of Mactan. Humabon himself was married to Lapu-Lapu's niece. When Magellan demanded that Lapu-Lapu submit as his king, Humabon had done, Lapu-Lapu purportedly replied that he was unwilling to come and do reverence to one whom he had been commanding for so long a time. The Aguinid Chronicle also records that Humabon had actually purposefully goaded the Spaniards into fighting Lapu-Lapu, who was at that time his enemy. However, the men of Humabon who accompanied Magellan did not engage in battle with Lapu-Lapu. Though they helped with recovering the wounded Spaniards, Humabon later poisoned and killed 27 Spanish sailors during a feast. According to the Aguinid, this was because they had started raping the local women. It was also possible to aid Magellan's Malay slave interpreter, Enrique of Malacca, in gaining his freedom. The Spanish were refusing to release him, even though Magellan explicitly willed that he be set free upon his death. Enrique stayed in Cebu with Humabon, while the Spanish escaped to Bohol.